Thank you all for coming out on this, what is this, the second day of spring? I don't know about you, but I'm sure we all feel the same way. The last of the snow to melt and to get a little warmer, the grass to turn green. I've had enough of winter. So we're going to get right into this. I've got a lot of very good stuff to share with all of you this evening. We've had lots of progress. A lot of good things have happened. So we'll get right into it and officially welcome you to the 2019 Southfield State of the City Address. There should be a drum roll or something. All right, great. So this is my fourth State of the City, and I'm very honored to be doing it once again. And this is our team. We have Council President Cruz and Council Pro Tem Taylor, Fracassi, Morris, Montalbaum, Brightwell. Daniel Brightwell is in the house right here, Councilman Brightwell. And of course, Myron Frazier. And our Clerk Hawkins, Treasurer Lowenberg, and our City Manager Zorn. And John McRena, our Deputy City Manager, is here. John? So we'll start right out with business news. Is there anybody that doesn't know that Beaumont has moved to Southfield? Doesn't know. Okay, good. I was going to say, if you raised your hand and said, I didn't know that, then you haven't driven down Northwestern Highway. So this is a big story for us. Obviously, moving 3,000 people into a building that was pretty near empty on Northwestern Highway had been rehabbed, and they were looking for tenants. And so Beaumont Health bought the building. And the reason that they're here is that we are central. We are centrally located, and that's a plus. You know, people ask me all the time, aren't you worried about what's going on downtown and Dan Gilbert this and that? And you know, we market a totally different thing here. And not everybody wants to be downtown, and I am never been and am not a Detroit basher. I go downtown, and I'm very happy for what's happening downtown. However, we offer something different. And a lot of the people that are making a choice to come to Southfield, because they look at where is their workforce. And the workforce, we're in the geographic and population center of the Detroit metropolitan area, and they deliberately make these decisions. In the case of Beaumont, they were having communication problems in finance and personnel, and because they were decentralized, and so all of their functions were on their, I think, 16 campuses, and they just said this isn't working. And so they decided instead that we're going to bring all these people together so that there's more face-to-face, and then create room on their various campuses, which in some places they were short of. So our second big story of the year is the company named Veoneer. It was part of Autoliv, and Autoliv is their logo is or slogan is "We Save Lives," and they do all of these car safety features. The back cameras and the the sensors for when people are close to you. Working on the blind spot, eliminating blind spots, or being aware that somebody is maybe not in your vision. And so they also had a choice. They were in numerous locations, including Southfield, and Veoneer decided we're going to stay in Southfield, and then spent $85 million staying in Southfield. They've built this magnificent building out on American Drive, west of Telegraph, and next to Barton Mallow. And they are hiring. They expect to hire another 250 employees at this location. And again, they do driver safety systems, brake control, autonomous driving, that sort of thing. Then, you know, the other thing that we've had this year is we have an expansion of tech companies, either new companies coming into the city, or we have existing tech companies that are growing. And so to highlight a few of them, we've had a company here that came to Southfield, I think 4 years ago, named P3. They're on 11 Mile west of Franklin Road, and they have a new, their newest project. They've worked on autonomous vehicles, but their newest project is making it easier for auto companies to integrate Amazon Alexa into a car, into vehicles. And then this company that I'd never heard of before, it's called Configit, is a business solutions tech company. They were looking at Atlanta, they were looking at Chicago, and they chose Southfield, Michigan. And we welcome them. We're very glad to have them. Technosoft, a global tech company that is all over the world with 4,400 employees, has moved into the Oakland Town Square building on Northwestern Highway, and they've got this digital transformation center that they've opened there. Another new company, this one based out of India, moved into the Riverside office building on Telegraph at Denso Drive, and they deliver software solutions for automotive companies. The chief among them is Denso. Speaking of Denso, Denso's added a new department. Denso is growing. They now have the whole Oak Hollow office park. Matter of fact, they've taken over the last building, and they've moved people out as they've expanded. And so Denso now has a new connected services department. That's the latest department that they've added to Southfield. Lear, another one of our big auto suppliers, is working on thermal seating and heating and cooling systems. You know, Lear does car interiors, they do car electronics, and they do they're known for their seating. They've also expanded. They're on both sides of Telegraph Road. And they have this new partnership with Gentherm. Then in other business news, last year, you may remember in the State of the City address, I talked about the Westin Hotel at Town Center, a $14 million remake of the hotel. Did a beautiful job of refurbishing the hotel. Nobody spends that kind of money if this is not a good business market for them, and if they're not going to stay here. And it's the same thing with the Marriott on Northwestern Highway. Spent $10 million on renovating their property. Did a beautiful job with the common areas. I love the new lobby. It's very cozy, it's attractive, and again, the guest rooms. A national chain chose Southfield. This is Noah's Event Center, and they're a little quirky. They have a business model that works. They're all over the country. This is the second location in Michigan. And they didn't want to be on a main street. So they're on Northwestern Highway, but they're back next to Oakland Town Square and behind the Red Pole Park. And they do small meetings, conferences, weddings, family events, and This brand new facility opened in January, and we welcome them. They have a business model that works. They also they don't have a caterer. You bring your own caterer. They have the AV, the chairs, the tables. You bring the rest. We welcome return to, if you haven't been out to, now it's New Seoul Plaza, it was New Seoul Garden. The restaurant was tired. It got new ownership. They put a $4 million, very attractive remake of the restaurant. It's really beautiful, and they believe in Southfield. They could have closed up, but instead. And then we have Northland that we continue to slog along on. It's a very, very complicated project. And so this past year, we've had the demolition of the Firestone building. This was part of phase 1. The Target building was done last year. We purchased Montgomery Ward Auto Service Center. You may say, Montgomery Ward? Well, I think JCPenney's used it for a while. It's a 12-bay auto service garage that's been vacant for years. It's on Greenfield Road, and we paid $1 million for it. And it's not worth it, but we paid $1 million because it had a 10-acre easement on parking on Greenfield Road. So even so, the auto service center is slightly under 3 acres. The deal that somebody made years ago gave them 10 acres of parking, which meant we own the property, we have to maintain the parking lot, we can't use it for anything else because there's an easement. So the only way to get rid of the easement was to buy the building. So in other words, we bought the easement. We had, speaking of easements, this last year, we had 33 easements at Northland. We're down to just one. 870 pages of easement documents to, this all takes time. The other thing that has been really hard on us has been the asbestos removal. Just when we think we've got all the asbestos out of the mall, more is discovered. So the most recent that I learned about yesterday is that in the tunnels that we hope to keep, they sprayed an asbestos-based spray on the ceilings. So that's another. The other thing that we found, in retail, when they remodel, a lot of times it's very important to keep the sales floor fresh and moving on, and not have it closed for any length of time for remodeling. So what we discovered, we didn't realize this in the initial inspections at Hudson's and several of the stores, is they put walls on top of walls. So the most outer wall was asbestos-free, but the wall behind it, or the wall behind that one, had asbestos. So this has been, and we can't tear anything down until you get the asbestos properly eradicated and taken care of. So we've had numerous meetings with potential developers. Matter of fact, on Monday night, council gave the green light to, it's a sort of the first step in buying property. It's a due diligence, a memo of understanding to a developer who plans to develop along Greenfield Road. We have several other major developers in the pipeline. Some are waiting. They want to, they don't. They're interested, but they're waiting for more of the mall to come down because they don't want to build and then you've got this behemoth behind you. So that's understandable. So we do have a demolition plan in place. Hopefully by this summer, we will begin demolition, the next phase of demolition of the mall. And negotiations have been really tough with Providence Hospital. The hospital's needs have not changed. the real stumbling block is the parent company, Ascension Health, which is headquarters in St. Louis, does not want to build anything. They want somebody else to build it, and they want to lease it. As opposed to what Beaumont does, Beaumont builds. They're in the brick and mortar business. If you look at what they're doing at Botsford Hospital, $165 million renovation and addition to Botsford. They announced this week a new 117-bed hospital in Oxford. So, you know, we're back at the table with Providence. And we've had a host of other businesses come to Southfield this year. I won't read them all, but they're in healthcare, they're in food, they're in auto-related and technology. So moving on to neighborhoods, which is another top priority of ours. We've done a lot of work in my 3+ years now as mayor. We've invested millions in neighborhood renewal, over $8 million in neighborhood renewal. And so there are a number of things that I want to share with you that we continue to do. We are about promoting our neighborhoods, and we are about rehabilitating them. And we have to. We have an aging housing stock. We all have to reinvest and keep our properties up, keep our property values up. So we do a whole number of things. Parks and Garden Club, the annual garden walk. This year, or this past year, it was in Ravines. I see Mrs. Griffin here, don't I? In the back. She's going to help us host Southfield Garden. She's the president. And I need to talk to you, set up a meeting on the next phase of that. We got a grant from SHPO, the State Historic Preservation Office. And they came in and studied 2 neighborhoods of their choosing, Plumbrook Estates and Northland Gardens. And they, we went through the process. These neighborhoods are now state historic neighborhoods, mid-century modern neighborhoods. And why, you might say, well, why is that important? And some people think, that's too new to be historic. No, you only have to be 50 years old. So a lot of us are historic, speaking of myself. It's going on for national designation as historic neighborhoods. Why is that important? Because historic properties maintain their value, and they tend to appreciate faster. And again, it's a way of, it's just another tool in building our tax base and our property values. So, oops, I went too fast. The Big Rake, we had a very difficult time this year, but thankfully we had 250 volunteers. If you remember, the weather in November and December was bitter cold. We had snow, and yet people came out. We didn't do as much as we did in past years, but nonetheless, we had a successful program. And this is primarily for our elderly and our handicapped residents that are living in their houses. We want them to age in place. And then it's not all about single-family homes. It's also about our apartment communities. We want them to remain attractive. We want them to remain safe. And so the City Council passed an apartment inspection ordinance. We want our apartments, which we have about 17,000 apartment units, we want those to be viable. So the Southfield part, the next part of this presentation is about our volunteer partners. Government can't do it alone, and I am very, very appreciative of all the people who step forward and give their time because they live here and they're proud of their community and they help out. So the Parks and Garden Club is one. They operate the Emmanuel Community Farm. They raise thousands of pounds of fresh vegetables organically grown at Emmanuel Lutheran Church at 9 Mile and Lasher, and support Forgotten Harvest. They also perform yard makeovers for the elderly, and a pet peeve of mine is litter. So we go out on litter patrols. To me, it's such a lack of respect to just throw whatever you don't want out the car window. So anytime you want to join us on a litter patrol, we'll provide gloves and pickers and bags, but this is something we do. Another great partner of ours is Oakland Rebuilding Together. Oakland Rebuilding Together is a volunteer network that connects with corporations. The corporations get their employees a day off. They buy tools, they buy materials, and they do house makeovers. They did about 10 this year, and they've been doing it for many years now. And again, all of these efforts are restoring neighborhoods house by house. And then we have a great partnership with Habitat for Humanity. We just did 3 years of Rock the Block. This year was the biggest year yet. 5 days, scores of volunteers came out, 30-some homes were painted, yards cleaned, whatever needed doing. And they'll be back in Section 35 next year. Then a project that has made a real difference in Southfield, and that is the Southfield Neighborhood Revitalization Initiative, or as we call it, the SNRI. This is a home renewal program. This takes foreclosed properties, you're probably familiar with this, rehabs the house, puts it on the market with all up to code, all new finishes, top finishes, and then sells them to independent brokers. The properties are sold in the open market. Anybody can buy them if they qualify for a mortgage. The houses run from about 800, the ones that we've sold. We have 130-some properties that we're transitioning, and they range in size, and again, they're all over the city. They range in size from about 850 square feet to 5,400 square feet. Anyhow, the only caveat is that if you buy the house, you have to live in it. It cannot be a rental home. I'm not opposed to rental homes, but we have enough. And we need home ownership is what makes neighborhoods strong. So this is typical of an SNRI home. This home is about 65 years old. Anyhow, the before and after pictures speak for themselves. Some of it's repair work, some of it is just refresh. And this year, the SNRI will be building brand new homes on vacant lots. And this is really significant, the blight removal. We have had the SNRI, not at tax dollar expense, but at the Nonprofit Housing Corporation's expense, to date has spent $769,000 of their money on ridding the community of houses that were beyond repair. One of the houses, if you saw my mayor's memo, and by the way, there's a sign-up sheet out in the lobby if you don't get it, one of the houses had been flipped 10 times. It was an $80,000 house in 2000, and from 2000 to 2016, been flipped 10 times with no repair. This is why we're doing this program. You have these, some of them are, I would call them sort of vultures. They pick up properties, they have no intention of doing anything with them, or they rent them, don't pay the taxes, and then the tenants find out all of a sudden I'm on the street because the landlord hasn't paid the taxes. This is rampant in Wayne County. It's happened here. This is why we're doing this. We're fighting against the unscrupulous landlords and the flippers. Again, they don't do our neighborhoods any favors. So the Southfield Nonprofit Housing Corporation, the other thing that they're doing, in the Southfield School District, there are 7 closed schools. The ones that are in the center of neighborhoods, they're tough. What do you do with them? The cost of tearing down the school makes it almost impossible for anybody to build single-family homes there. Because the developer has to get his money out of the purchase of the property and the demolition of the school. So 4 of the schools are owned by the Southfield Board of Education. The Lathrop School, which is not in Southfield, that's owned by a private entity. This school was owned by a private entity. And John Gray School is now, was bought by the city. It's surplus property and has been on the market. But anyhow, McKinley School, the nonprofit housing corporation bought. The plan is to develop the building itself. It's a very nice, the original building is 1929, some beautiful architecture inside. It's going to be rehabbed into 18 units that range in size from 950 square feet to 2,500. They will be beautiful, they will be market rate, and 30-some townhouses will be built on the playfield. Of course, none of this can happen yet until the City Council rezones the property, so that's something that we're working on. So moving along, city infrastructure is something that's very important to us, another top priority. And I want to start out with, we had a rough year last year with our 2018 program. And again, we're doing complete street renewal. We're not just paving streets, we're doing sewers, we're doing water lines. We don't want to put down a new street and then a couple of years later you're digging it up because, well, now there's a sewer problem or a water main. So, of course, this becomes very expensive. But last year, we had a 5-week walkout, labor walkout in September when the weather was beautiful. They returned in October and November, and the weather was terrible. So 3 of the projects did not get completed. Winchester Street, the bridge on 9 Mile, and the service drive, northbound service drive from Civic Center to Lasher. All of these will be completed by June this year. And I'm pleased to announce the 2019 road projects. We're concentrating on neighborhoods this year. I won't read the whole list, but the only major street that will be done by with city dollars is the Northwestern Service Drive from Evergreen to 9 Mile. And then you can see the asterisk. The county, 10 Mile is not our road. I always like to tell everybody that. It's terrible. But 10 Mile, the county is going to come in, and they're not going to do a total rebuild, although I think they should. Of course, that's very expensive. So they're going to do what they've done on Southfield Road and Greenfield, which are also county roads. They're going to do sections. So it'll be kind of a piecemeal, but if it's a better ride, it's a better ride. And then Lasher. The other thing is that we're doing, we're on a this city was built around the automobile. We're on a plan that we approved a number of years ago, non-motorized pathway plan, to encourage walking and biking. And so we've added miles of sidewalk in the city, whether you realize that or not. And we've widened and replaced sidewalks. So this year, we're building, the next sidewalk project will be from Civic Center Drive down to 9 Mile along the southbound Northwestern Highway. We are on a mission to make this city more walkable. Again, we were designed around the automobile. We want to soften that. In your, perhaps it's out on the table. If you didn't grab it, please do. We are promoting with Southfield Trails. We have a trail map. We're increasing the amount of walking and biking area, and we're making them wider so that they can accommodate both bikes and pedestrians. So anyhow, we're on a 10-year program. We hope by 2025 or 24 that we will have done every street in the city, at least the ones that are under our jurisdiction. And so if you add up those figures, by next fall, we will have spent $170 million on rebuilding infrastructure. We could not wait for the state to do anything. And because the voters, all of you, approved a road bond, we have been able to, because we have bond money, we've been able to get matching grants. Nobody gives you road dollars for nothing. They say, well, we'll give you this, but you've got to match it with that. And that's one of the reasons we've been so successful. We have stretched our road dollars because we have voter-approved road bond money. We still have potholes, and we'll continue to have potholes for a while, but the number of complaints that have come into our office have declined dramatically. And then part of what we're doing is we're doing a sewer and water bond this year for $68 million between this year and 2021. And the most significant area for this is the 10-mile Greenfield area. There were 900 homes that flooded in the big rain event because when those neighborhoods were designed, they combined the sanitary sewer and the storm sewer. And with all that water, the combined system couldn't take the water, and so what happened, it backed up into people's basement. And that, we don't want that, a repeat of that if we can help it. So that's what this bond issue principally will go to. That is a $40 million repair or installation to separate them. If you remember 10 Mile being closed, we dug a year ago, finished the big pump station there. It was way down. The crane was there forever. It took a long time, but that's the first stage in building this infrastructure to move the water out of Southfield. So our next, talking about city services, just very quickly, some new things I want to announce. We we've had a lot of retirements in our police and fire departments. They've aged out, and usually they have to retire after 25 years. So we have been very busy recruiting new firefighters and policemen. We have restaffed the departments. We've added some where we could afford it. And we're also doing a lot of training and retraining for our veterans. But most of all, we pride ourselves on the fact that our first responders, when they are called on for help, they come with equipment that works. And your city council has approved a $2.9 million in 5 new fire trucks, 4 pumpers and a 100-foot ladder. This is a significant investment. We also have new city leadership. They're not here this evening, but a new city attorney, human resources director. Dawn King, who's been with us for many years in the legal department, is an attorney. Dawn was promoted deputy city attorney, and we hired Allison Bettis, deputy city treasurer. You know, we hit the downturn in the economy. The library is supported by its own millage. And when property values sunk, fewer dollars were there to support the library. And we are now on a recovery mode, and the library board will be restoring the 10 hours that were cut from the library starting in June. So I'm pleased to tell you that restoration is coming. I want to talk briefly about education. We continue to have great news out of Lawrence Tech. It's such an we're so proud to have Lawrence Tech, this private university in our city. It's really a gem. They have made a major transformation. For many years, Lawrence Tech was basically a commuter school. And they have turned the campus now into a robust college experience for students there. 1,000 kids are now living on campus. This is the latest dormitory to open, the East Hall, 305 beds. And they've added all these activities, 23 sports. They even have a phenomenal band. Their band is just, it's great. And then, of course, we are thrilled about this, to have a college football team. And you can say, well, I don't, that's not, who cares or whatever. This is great for business. The alumni is coming back. The first game, they expected maybe 2,000, 2,500 last September. 4,000 some people came to the game. So this is tremendous. They did exhibition games last fall. They're in league play this fall, 10 games. Mark your calendar, September 7th. And to go along with that, they are in phase 3 now of the athletic field. The scoreboard, the lights, and the AstroTurf are in. This building and the press box will not be built this year. They're doing this not through tuition. This is all being done through donation, through some of their, principally through their alumni building this. So the latest addition that's going up right now has been approved by City Council is another $1 million towards their athletic complex. Moving on to the Southfield Public Schools, I can tell you as a longtime educator that not every kid has the aptitude or the wherewithal to go to college. Yet they can be highly successful in life if they have a trade or some skills. And you probably are aware that there's a shortage in Michigan of skilled trades. So I facilitated bringing the Greater Detroit Building Trades Council, Southfield Schools, OCC together, and we put on an event called Build Your Future in the Southfield Pavilion last month. This was scores of middle school, high school students came, and we even had an evening session for adults who want to find a new career. And very, very grateful to the building trades for helping sponsor this. Southfield Public Schools kids are getting their hands dirty. They've partnered with Big Green, a national nonprofit organization, and they're doing school gardens. And this is to teach kids about real food. And that may sound funny, but you know, kids eat a lot of junk food. And processed food. This is about where food comes from, and it's about real food, vegetables. And then this is adorable. They're at Bussey Center. They have built this little town. They're all small buildings. They had a parent help build these little buildings, and so they have the kids go to the bank, they go to the grocery store, post office, hairdresser. They even have City Hall. A couple of times I've had office hours there. My only complaint is that the desk is too small. My knees are up, but this is part of learning about community. So, you know, as most of you are aware, I'm very big on the arts. It creates a sense of place. It gives the city vibrancy. And so we've had a very big year with our public arts. Our Red Pole Park, which was done all through donations, was dedicated last fall. And last week, the blue lights were put on top. So please drive by at night. It's phenomenal. Because of our interest in art, a fellow in Bloomfield Hills had this large piece of art called Pioneer Family 2 that he donated to the city of Southfield. It's now over at the Mary Thompson Farm. You know, we have the 18-piece Northland art collection that we purchased for $500,000 with a low-interest loan. We have raised to date about $800,000. We paid off the loan, and we were in the process of getting these pieces restored and moved and placed. All of this is extremely expensive. A couple of pieces, we just didn't have a suitable place, and they're indoor pieces. So we rented The Crowd by Gio Pomodoro to 2000 Town Center. It's in the lobby over there. And we also created a nonprofit organization called the Friends of Southfield Public Arts. Out on the table, there's a brochure about joining the public arts. I would ask you to join. There are all different membership levels from $15 to $1,000 or more, or whatever. But all of this money, this is how we're doing this. All of this art has been done through donations. No tax dollars other than some in-kind city services of staff who are employed here helping my office get some of this done logistically. All of this work is being done through donations. So we continue to raise money for this effort. Again, it's an 18-piece collection. But another piece that came out was The Prophet. It's in the front garden out here on the south garden by Sorel Etrog. This was in storage. Those of you that are as old as I am will remember shopping at Northland when it was before it was enclosed, and they had the various courtyards, and there was the Peacock Court. Well, when this piece had fallen down and put in the basement and stored, and then they enclosed the mall, and it just sat there for 45 years. So when we bought the mall, we found the Peacock, and so we have restored it, and it's now flying once again in front of the Southfield Public Library in the Library Circle. And our latest installation is the Moby Dick whale by Joseph Anthony McDonald that was in the remaining courtyard at Northland. This fountain was no longer working. This spring it will be spouting water once again, and we had the library fountain itself was always impractical. It had been there, it was built 16 years ago when the library opened in 2003. It only worked for 6 years. It wasn't for this climate. That long lagoon, you couldn't see it. Things were getting gummed up all the time. The control room flooded and burned out everything. So we've raised about $200,000 now. Again, all private donations for this project to remake the library fountain. The library fountain now will only be this. There's a capstone missing that is yet to come. This area will be, all of this north area, the lagoon will disappear. This area will be filled in so that it's flush with the existing terrain. And it'll look something like this when it's done. We will have a maze kind of garden, miniature maze. We still need funds to complete this project. So again, a donation to the Southfield Public Arts Fund is what's paying for this. And those of you who've been around a while remember we used to have smooth jazz concerts on the lawn. Well, we brought smooth jazz back last summer. My very good friend Kimmy Horn joined us and put on a tremendous show. Thousands of people came, and it was a free concert except to park. We charged $10, and that went to the Public Art Fund. And Kimmy is coming back this summer, August 9th and 10th on the front lawn. We encourage you to come back. And we also had another great concert last summer. This was with Alexander Zonjek and a number of other artists, the Rhythm and Rhymes Festival. This was put on by Southfield Parks and Rec and the Oakland County Parks and Rec. This concert will return this summer on July 20th. And so moving on to some other city events, as you know, 2018 was our 60th anniversary. So we celebrated the anniversary with our big open house and a number of other events. We have a very active chapter of My Brother's Keeper. Last year we did a large youth symposium for Southfield and surrounding community youth. This year, I really think the approach this year is better. It's more intimate. They do once a month on Saturday, Meal with a Message, and it's a different topic, and we provide lunch, and it's in Parks and Rec. Although it's My Brother's Keeper is about young men of color, we turn nobody away. If you're Caucasian, you're certainly welcome to come because we are an inclusive community. The Southfield Historical Society, which another volunteer group, these are all volunteers, put on a great exhibition, The Potawatomi of Southfield, the Native Americans who lived here before white settlers. And this was at the Berg, the Southfield Historic Museum. Part of the exhibit remains on permanent display. And along with this, the Southfield City Council approved an Indigenous Peoples Day resolution. Again, it's about inclusiveness. We no longer observe Columbus Day in the city of Southfield. It's now Indigenous Peoples Day. Not everybody was on board with that, but that's what we're doing. Crohn's and Colitis Foundation had been in Royal Oak for years. Things weren't working out there, and they said, you know, we're going to come to Southfield. They had a tremendous walk, although it drizzled that morning. 600 people did the 5K walk, and it's called Take Steps. And it will be back on June 8th. Again, something else you can mark your calendar for. Our very popular, we've had this many years, the Southfield Chamber of Commerce's Southfield Taste Fest, with this year was at the Best Western Premier Hotel. We've added a edible creations competition. The Silver Garden won the competition, and yeah, that is a savory beet, not beef. That's not a typo. Ravioli, and I'm going to tell you, I was a judge. It was delicious. And then our Community Cup Challenge. This is one of the things we try to reach out to our office workers to get them involved in the community, to feel part of the community. So this year we were up to 19 teams from various companies. They competed for 6 weeks. There was a trivia event, a volleyball, a scavenger hunt that they called the Amazing Race. And then the culminating activity was a back-to-school poster contest and to collect. And we did all the school buses were out here, one per school, and they stuffed the bus with school supplies for Southfield kids. It was a great event, and honestly, the outpouring of the companies, I was absolutely overwhelmed. Our 34th annual Peace Walk was held in January. We're very proud of this event. We are the largest and oldest Peace Walk, Martin Luther King Peace Walk in the state of Michigan. And this is a non-political organization. We celebrate diversity, we celebrate tolerance and nonviolence. And, you know, we have to keep marching because these events keep happening, whether it's in Pittsburgh, South Carolina, Charleston, South Carolina, or New Zealand. And it's important that we stand up to this. And so this is something we're extremely proud of, and it's a good program every year. Moving on to some awards and recognitions, I want to make mention of a few things here. First of all, Veoneer, we got this award. We didn't even know we were up for it. We're one of the best cities for small business startup, and it's because of our freeway network with average commute times being shorter than for many other places, and a respectable number of college grads, and we have a tremendous fiber optic network. Another recognition, our Economic and Development Business Director, Shelley Freeman. She won 2 awards this year. Some of you know her from the Michigan Economic Development Association. She's the Medalist of the Year, as well as the Robert Seacart Award for Proven Contributions to Economic Development. Shelley does a tremendous job for us, and one of the reasons we've been successful, we have to keep these, our 28 million square feet of office, we have to keep it occupied. It's good for our tax base. Keep Michigan Beautiful. We won 2 awards this year. The President's Award for the Berg Historic Park, and the Award of Excellence for continuing the restoration and placement of the Northland Art Collection. And I think most of you have probably been out to the Berg Park, but it is spectacular from spring to fall, and very deserving of this award. And there's a young lady out there named Lori Dillon who does most of the work. Our city calendar, again, won a Savvy Award. This is from the Communication and Marketing Association, or 3CMA. With us is Betsy Lawson and Michael Mannion. You can take a bow, for our city calendar. We appreciate their efforts, and it's a very attractive calendar. They outdo themselves every year. And the Michigan Planning Association gave Southfield and our our engineering firm, OHM Advisors, the 2000 Economic Development Award for the vision for Northland. And again, I would mention, it's great to create a vision. We shop the vision, but visions don't always happen. It depends on who's willing to invest. So the vision that we shared with you of Northland is going to be a little different because then there's reality hits. And so I just want to close with this, with acknowledging, we have a very dedicated city staff here. The work that we direct as council, administration, mayor, doesn't happen without a great crew of people that make it happen. So I won't read all of these names, but our department leadership is really what makes the city run. So I want to thank you for your attention. And if you are willing to stay, I have a second PowerPoint that I'll go through very briefly. It's on the roads, the road projects, a little more detail than I gave you in this, because I know that's a topic for everyone. So, and I'll go through this very, very quickly. This is the capital improvement plan for the coming year. The projects that did get finished were 11 Mile, Bell to Arlington, Lockdale, Pinewood Manor, and Bedford Villa, and the safe routes to school. This was more sidewalk that goes from 10 Mile to 11 Mile, so that you can walk now from Tanglewood neighborhood down to 10 Mile. There's a whole path, including crossing, and this was done strictly with grant money. Again, it was something that we were able to leverage. And then the programs that are for this year and next year that you can see on the map, and then we'll zero in on those. Again, you can see a lot of neighborhood work. I've already spoken about what's going to be completed on these 3 projects. So Case Avenue, if you don't know, is between 12 Mile and Northwestern Highway. It's on the service drive. And then we have the southbound Northwestern Service Drive. As I mentioned, this will be, we're going to be adding finishing this project. It was started last year. It goes from Southfield Road here up to Mount Vernon. Work was started on that last year. It'll be finished up this year. Then the rest of the service drive, again, 10 Mile and up. And then we're doing Bonnie Acres, Canterbury Gardens. So this is 12 Mile, this is Catalpa. So that whole, it's a half mile of that section. And it includes, as you can see, asphalt, concrete slab, and water main replacement. And I would mention, before we started this water main, anytime you see water main break, it's not a good thing because we're all paying for it. Then when that water goes down the drain, it's just, you know, it's all averaged, and that's what is the basis for water, our water rates. So when you see, you've seen fewer water main breaks because we've been replacing 50, 60, 70-year-old water mains. We were losing up to 22%. We're down now to about 5% of water loss. Again, all of this work is helping to keep our, I won't say low, but it's helping to keep our water rates from going higher. So then this is the area, again, that sewer separation project. This is 10 Mile. This is Greenfield, the freeway, Lincoln Drive. So this is Southwood and Sherfield. And these are all houses that had the flooding with the combined sanitary and sewer. So this is another phase of that project. Then we have this neighborhood. This is City Hall right here. So this is the neighborhood. This is Greenfield, or Evergreen rather, and that neighborhood north of City Hall. This is 12 Mile and Northwestern Highway to Rosemont and Sherrydale. Washington Village, which is, here's Lee Baker Street, Phillips Street, 9 Mile. These roads are in really, really rough shape. And then we'll be doing the Northwestern Service Drive as well as on the southbound side. And you can see that the costs attached to each one of these. So this is, again, $40.76 million that we're spending this year. So I think that's, yeah, that's it. So anyhow, thank you for your kind attention. I'll entertain questions if you have any. Otherwise, we'll recess to the lobby. There's some refreshments. And you can stick around and socialize for a while. Yes, ma'am.
What's happening with Beechwoods?
Well, Beechwoods, we have a study going on. The council will be weighing whether to close it for a year. We have flooding on the course. We have an irrigation system that doesn't work. And honestly, we have to take a hard look at this city at whether we can afford 2 golf courses, given the patronage. Patronage is down on both this course and Beechwoods. And the estimate for repair at Beechwoods is over $500,000. That might be better spent on projects, other projects. You know, a lot of our Parks and Rec facilities were built, and I really thank you for the question, because a lot of our Parks and Rec facilities were built in the 70s. They are 45, 50 years old. And they're wearing out. So again, our Parks and Rec facilities are supported with their own independent millage. When the decline in property values happened, there was less revenue for the department. They've been living out of sort of off their savings for a number of years, and maybe we can't afford it. You know, the city built, back in the 70s, the city built 2 ice rinks and 2 swimming pools. And times change. Our population is older, and people have different interests. So for instance, we turned the Beechwoods ice rink into a basketball court. It's busy every day. It's meeting the current interest of folks. And maybe we can't afford, but we could add other things to Beechwood Park. You know, for instance, I'm advocating for a dog park. I'm advocating for more picnic shelters. Our picnic shelters all reserve up. Let's spend money on that. We have a lot of interest in a dog park. So maybe the Parks and Recs wants to reassess whether it's worth repairing and spending that kind of money, and then you reopen a golf course that is underused. Does it make sense? So that's where it's at. And I don't believe it's taking away something. I believe it's repurposing the funds that we have. Very good question. I appreciate your raising that. Well, again, I thank you all for attending. Please stick around for a couple of cookies and a conversation. Thank you so much.